Hello and welcome to part 2 of my diastasis videos. Now, if you are struggling with diastasis and doming or any abdominal pain, please go back to part 1 where I do a lot more explanation and education about what it is, and this is more of a purely exercise video. Okay, so please check out part 1 and make sure that you are happy with the quality of movement that you're getting from those exercises before you move on to these ones. Okay, again, with everything, if you get pain, whether it's abdominal, pelvic or into your lower back, please stop, go back into a simpler exercise. Pressure, a downward feeling where you're just not able to control this abdominal pressure and therefore it's pushing downwards, please stop. And also if feeling of leaking or bearing down, then perhaps you're just pushing a little bit and we need to regress those exercises as well. So for these ones, we're going to start in a nice 4-point position again. And this is a really nice position to be able to feel how much gravity is pulling belly downwards, and actually it gives you a little bit more to pull against. So just taking a nice few breaths here to begin with, okay? Set yourself nice. Shoulders just above hands, hips above knees. Make sure that you're not sinking the belly down because you're not able to engage it if you're extended. Make sure that you're not too curled in your back either, because that means that you're probably gripping a little bit too hard. Finding somewhere in the middle where your shoulders are soft, you've got your natural lumbar spine lordosis, and on your next out breath, you're going to bring your belly button in, physically sucking it in and upwards towards your spine. Inhale, release it. Let it drop down. It's that drop and the release that is still very important. Exhale, bring it in. Think about bringing your ribs down and have a little feel if you need. Are your ribs down and your upper abdominals still working, or can you get your fingers right under your ribs and therefore you're probably hollowing rather than tightening? Okay, let's add pelvic floor to that. So as you exhale, feel a little tightening around belly button and then a little lift from pelvic floor, and I'm only talking 30–40%, and that just helps recruit a little bit more of that transverse. If we're happy here, let's slot the shoulders down, and on the next exhale you're going to shift your weight over onto your knee and start to extend through a leg where we're not rotating in our back, we're not dropping our hip, and we're able to maintain that nice neutral spine, and we're not lifting the leg too high because that's creating too much extension as well. Inhale, put it down. Exhale, switch the legs. Inhale, down and switch. And again, let's do 2 more here. So we're learning this weight transfer, keeping the pelvis and the back nice and steady. So we're getting a nice little tensioning around our tummy. Making it harder, you're going to add the opposite arm. Lengthen a leg away. Hold it as you start to take the weight onto that same side hand, and you peel up the other hand, get your balance before you start to reach away and hold. Again, lower is easier than too high, but really lengthen fingers and toes away. Again, feeling like something is having to work here, because otherwise you'd be wobbling all over the place. Let's switch sides. There's always going to be one side that is easier than the other. Peel up the opposite hand, and you might stop there and put it back down, but if you can, extend it away. And let's try again, using that out breath. And another one as you extend the arm. Keep the shoulders down, away from the ears. Last one, opposite side. Have a feel of belly. Now it shouldn't be rock solid, it should just be gently turning on and back in. Making it slightly harder. Sometimes it's easier to feel it engage if you challenge it more. Now I'm going to come up off my wrists because I've got bad wrists, but still making sure that your shoulders are away from your ears. Tuck the toes under. You're going to lift into a hover. Lift your knees on the out breath. And down. Strong through the legs. Feel that tension into your tummy. Keep the shoulders down. Neck lengthened. And lift and down. Again, pelvis is nice and steady. Lower back isn't moving. You're pushing with your legs, but tightening through belly button a little bit more. With the breath rate, inhale down, exhale lift. 2 more. Well done. Hands forward into your knee plank. Okay, so working into these plank progressions a little bit. Let's drop the feet and bring your hips in. So you're slotting them in as the shoulders come down, trying to avoid sinking and again extending through the back. Just bring it up into a level where your shoulders, hips and knees are in a line. Okay, it's sometimes difficult to see, but you'll get there. Inhale off, bottom high. Exhale, bring it forwards, slotting the hips down, shoulders down. So we're getting this lengthening in the abdominals, but under tension. Still working really quite hard through the abdominals, but there's no crunches. 2 more. Now, if you've got a desire to get back into these planks, let's add a little progression. Staying on our knees, bringing hips in, and then you're going to take the weight over onto one arm and tap, and then release off again. So we're not holding it for a minute, but we're able to hold the core exercise, but start to move with the upper body or the lower body. Ease off, same again, and tap and tap. As soon as you start to sustain a movement like a plank, you're going to start to use your stronger muscles like your quads and like your shoulders. When you're really trying to work a core exercise, keep this nice and steady, but try and challenge it with a little bit of movement elsewhere. Okay, release off. And give those shoulders a nice roll. Trying to always keep the collarbones open, so when you're down in that position, you're tending to encourage a little bit more flexion. Which is what comes into this some nice spinal rolls as well, okay? So a lot of diastasis is actually to do with overtension in different areas, and a lot of that can come from spinal stiffness. And you'll find that with new baby, you tend to curl into this position for feeding or rocking or carrying or bending or car seats, blah blah. Okay, so let's try and stretch out the spine a little bit. Extend the knees and push them down as much as hamstrings allow, lifting up through the back and again opening up collarbones. We're going to reach down beyond our toes, so think about curling through the upper back, lower back, and reaching as much as hamstrings, bringing the toes up and reaching. But then as we stack back up, I want you to think about your lower back coming first, and then into your mid back, and then into your upper back, and then you're going to open nice as you reach upwards, and same again, down and forward and head down, and then bring it back and roll and lift nice and high. We'll do the same, but we're going down to the outside of the right foot and stack it back up nice and tall, and to the left side and bring it back nice and tall. Let's keep it here, hands behind your head, rotate round so you're working a little bit more into the upper back there. Yeah, it's pretty tight. And you can have a little bounce at the end there just to ease into it. Inhale, exhale to the other side. And release. Okay, let's keep the legs nice and long and we'll work into a little lean back. Again, we are extending through the abdominals, but as soon as you go an inch back, you feel them having to turn on, okay? Here's a good position again to use your fingers, have a little feel, okay? Try and keep the back as tall as you can, collarbones open. Lean back. Feel how they're going to have to start to harden. Now find your weaker point, okay? So it's usually around belly button, just above, just below for some people. Now, is it very deep or is it very wide? Now take note of that and see if you can change that. Either way is good, okay? Anything that you are creating more of a tension is good. Use the breath. Can you make it harder by exhaling? Now inhale, release. Exhale back. Now add pelvic floor. Can we squeeze? Can you feel how that makes it even harder? Now inhale up. Exhale back. Now we're working here deeper and superficial muscles. Inhale up. Exhale back. Always using that breath to keep the ribs down. Again, having a feel, uppers, mid, lowers. What's working the hardest? Do a couple here. Just going with that breath rate. Now it's good to know what's going on, but I don't want you to overanalyze it either. As long as you feel that tension and you're not creating that downward pressure or holding your breath, and therefore you're just creating more pressure. We're going to get the obliques involved, so as we lean back, you're going to, as if you're pulling a rope on one side, you're going to open up, twist here, working a little bit more into the side, and inhale up, other side, pull it back, a little upper back twist, and again, other side, lead with the elbow, keep the collarbones open, and again. One more each side. And release. Let's take the pressure off the legs. Roll down into your back position and we'll work into our scissors. So level one, we just started working on the one leg. We're now going to start to switch them. So as you lift one, you should feel a gentle tension come on, but for some people that's not going to feel difficult at all. So now we're going to switch them in the air, which means both legs are going to be in the air for a split second. Blow out and switch, so that you get the breath a split second before you're moving. We're still in this neutral spine position, so that when I switch, I'm not arching my back or squashing it down. Again, have a little prod and a poke. So really focusing on the breath, and as you breathe out, you feel it harden, and as you put the leg down and inhale, release it. Let it go back nice and soft. Now if you want to make it faster, you're going to have to maintain a bit of tension. But then the breath powers up extra tension. If you want to lift your head to see what's going on, that's going to make the exercise harder, but then you're focusing more on taking the ribs down. And again, having a feel and maintaining that depth rather than it going too deep. Maintaining the level strength, I should say, rather than it going deeper. Let's do 4, 3, 2, and 1. Give the knees a little hug. I'm going to stay in this tabletop position, which is where your knees are in line with your hips, hip width apart. Again, upper body nice and relaxed, nice and open, and we're not overarching here, okay? If that is too difficult and you feel your back starting to give, put one leg back down. Okay, but ideally, let's start in tabletop, making it easier, bring your knees closer to you as well. Hands by your sides, stretching fingertips down as you squeeze your shoulder blades. Exhale, lengthen one leg. Tension with that lengthening. Inhale back together. Other side. And in. Nice and slow, nice and controlled. Keep the ribs down. Avoid overarching the back. Switch the legs. So I'm keeping it at this 45-degree angle. If you want to make it slightly harder, as you lengthen the leg, you're then going to drop the heel down halfway and then bring it back up and in. Just maintaining it that little bit longer. Longer lever, more tension required. Until eventually you're dropping them right down to the ground. But as I do that, you can see how my opposite knee is coming closer to my chest. And you'll find your body doing these little tricks, whether it's upper body tension or lower back squashing, just to try and maintain that control. One more each side. Come back into tabletop, and we're going to add the arms. So they're up to the ceiling to begin with, slotting those shoulder blades down. And as you exhale, you're going to float them overhead, being mindful that you are not overarching your upper back and flaring through your ribs. So that's where you're working more through your upper abdominals and back up. And this is really nice if you want to progress it with a ball or a weight, and you're getting a little bit more arm strength in there as well. And then we can put them together. So as we lengthen the arms, we're going to extend one leg, in together, and out together. In and out. So this is a variation of the dead bug, which is one of my favorite Pilates exercises, because we're working every small little muscle, really focusing on lengthening through the spine, lengthening but keeping a nice tension into your abdominals. Keep the elbows and the shoulders nice and soft. One more each side. And one last knee hug before we do a little bit of crunching. Okay, so the knees are staying in tabletop, but feel free to drop them down if the thighs or the tummy is struggling here. Bringing the hands behind your head. Keep the elbows just into your peripheral view and support the head as you lift up onto your shoulder blades. And again, feeling how that's changing the pressure here. Inhale down. Exhale. Come up. Ribs down. Squash the lower back just a little bit so that you're avoiding it pushing up. Inhale down. Support the head so you're not straining through the neck. And see if you can squeeze up pelvic floor at the same time. Inhale down. Put it all together and you should feel this nice level tensioning through the abdominals, but it takes work. And the only way that you are going to strengthen a muscle is if you load it. You have to take it to that point where you are challenging. It's hard. It's maybe beginning to quiver or shake. So that might just be 5 reps to begin with, and then you are slowly building up. And always remembering any downward pressure where you are pushing or holding your breath is not ideal. That's the last one there. Drop the feet and let's roll into a nice rotation stretch again, so that you're always then lengthening and stretching. And the other side. And getting out of bed, you're using legs or you're rolling onto your side to lift yourself back up. Okay, for C-section scars, please make sure that you are massaging them as soon as they are nicely healed and connected. Then really work into them. But even for people that don't have a C-section scar, if you're working up into your abdominals and just having a feel of them, it's just getting that connection back, it's getting a nice blood flow to the area, it's going to help with healing as well. And your abdominals will never feel the same, okay? They've gone through a massive change, and they all feel a little bit Rice Krispie. And often you can feel just these little knots, and they are often above or below where a gap may be. Especially if you end up tightening through your obliques too much or into your lower or your upper abdominals. And with every injury that I will talk about, whether it's a shoulder, knee or abdominals, you must release to then reconnect. Okay, so release to restore, stretch and massage and heat and move before you start doing strengthening exercises. Okay, so lots of upper back mobility, extension exercises, a bit of massage, and then more so going into these strengthening exercises. The other big ones that I touched on last time to do with diastasis are still, it's not about your exercise, it is mainly about everything else. So you can hammer in those abdominal exercises, but it may not make a difference if your posture and positioning is rubbish through the day. And often it is just this curling posture where, again, we are not lengthening and we're not using these. So always making sure that you are getting that stretching and nice lengthening through the spine. Good hydration, good fibre, good nutrition, so that you are helping those collagen fibres grow and increase and knit back together, or whatever, however you want to describe it. Fibre and hydration also to reduce constipation, trying to avoid over bloating and straining as much as you can, because it's all about this intra-abdominal pressure. So we don't want to put any extra into that if we can avoid it. Excessive loading. So are you lifting that buggy up the million flights of stairs every day, or just doing too much too soon? And needs must in those early days. So when you say don't lift anything heavier than your baby, it's rubbish. I know it's rubbish. You've got to just do what you've got to do, but do it with quality movement patterns. And if you can ask for help, then do. And then last thing that I touched on was challenging yourself. So not in the case of lifting the buggies, but in good quality exercise movement where you are working the muscles. So you cannot build a bicep unless you work it to a degree where it is fatigued. And you may feel it the next day with those DOMs, and that's a good sign. So actually, the more you're doing right now that you feel, oh God, yesterday did I do too much because it's sore? Well, probably not. You probably are working it to a good degree, but don't push it too much past that. Okay, and that's the difference between pain and a good muscular pain. Okay, if you find those exercises all right, then you are happy to move on to some general Pilates exercises, then great, or getting back into some weight training and things, but just building the foundation first is key. Thank you for watching.